From Washington, the moderator of Meet the Press, David Gregory, and here on set, editor-in-chief of BuzzFeed, Ben Smith.
You know, Mika, nobody gave the United States much of a chance to even get out of the so-called group of death. You didn't, I never, and you know soccer better than anybody.
Exactly.
I didn't.
I do.
Roger Bennett didn't. Jurgen Klinsmann didn't.
Gary Hopkins didn't.
Nobody.
Exactly.
People that know soccer said we had no shot.
T-minus 6 and counting. Tim Howard will be on. After 3 games of group play, 23 men representing the United States and Brazil have proven us wrong. Tim Howard had another stellar game in goal, shutting down a fierce German attack that controlled the field of play for nearly 70% of the game. We're going to talk to him live in just a few minutes. Thomas Muller's goal in the 55th minute would ultimately be the deciding factor in the match, but Portugal's Cristiano Ronaldo would bail the U.S. out, defeating Ghana 2-1.
I have to love Ronaldo for one day.
For a moment.
For one day.
So even in defeat, the U.S. moves on to the group of 16 based on goal differential. They've captured the attention of the entire nation, but now the tournament really begins. The U.S. plays Belgium on Tuesday, and if they can win that game, they'll likely face Argentina and Lionel Messi in the quarterfinals.
Mark Halpern, incredible game yesterday.
Incredible, great for the country, great for soccer, and you know, the further the U.S. goes, it's going to be great to see what the ratings are like for the game on Tuesday, 4 o'clock Eastern time. That could build a pretty big audience.
We're going to win it all. You heard it here first.
We're going to hit all right. And Sam said it. Now we are doomed for sure.
We have Tim Howard in just a few minutes to get a little bit of news in here. Both Bill and Hillary Clinton say they were dead broke leaving the White House, but a new analysis by the Washington Post shows those financial struggles didn't last long. The former president gave his first paid speech just 2 weeks after leaving office, and he hasn't stopped since. Between January of 2001 and January of 2013, Bill Clinton was paid nearly $105 million for 542 speeches. More than half of those earnings came from events overseas, many in China. In 2011, a single speech in Hong Kong netted Clinton $750 grand. Here at home, the largest spenders were financial services companies and the big banks on Wall Street. The paper says Hillary Clinton is in even higher demand than her husband. Her appearances regularly command $200,000 and up. The Clintons' earning power raises complications for the potential presidential candidate, with critics blasting the couple's ties to powerful interests and their status in the 1%.
David Gregory, over $200,000 per speech. Not bad. Why did you go to Iowa with that? You had a fascinating discussion with President Clinton about a lot of different things that we can talk about, but let's start with the money aspect of it. This information coming out that actually they made more money than a lot of us expected.
Well, and I think that one thing that's going to link the left and the right here in terms of our presidential politics is this feeling a populist surge that establishment politicians who rely on campaign contributions from big businesses, from banks and whatnot, are less credible on some of these questions about income inequality and sticking up for the middle class. President Clinton told me, look, we've always fought for this stuff. People don't begrudge people who make a lot of money as long as you're transparent. I think the political calculus on that is changing a bit, but you talked about this earlier in the morning. Look, Barack Obama took a lot of money from big banks as well. He got Dodd-Frank passed. A lot of people on Wall Street are complaining about that. There are certainly those on the left who think it doesn't go far enough. But I just think this credibility issue of who best represents, you know, the people at a time when so much stagnation on wages and whether families are getting ahead, these issues become bigger.
And boy, it is a complicated web that Bill Clinton brings to his wife's campaign if she runs in 2016. We saw it even not just with money, but with Iraq, a war that he was for before he was against it.
I mean, she voted. I mean, I think her position on Iraq is probably more complicated than his.
Well, he actually complicated.
I just read a quote from 2004 where he said that he supported President Bush's invasion of Iraq from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean,
it's complicated.
It's going to be. I mean, Hillary Clinton, you know, is a great candidate in the abstract.
Wait, what was that?
No, I know, but I think as you know, as happened in 2008, when you sort of make contact with reality, suddenly things often get really complicated. When you have a very long record and have not always have zigged this way and that. it'll get messy.
It's weird. People get so, it's almost uncomfortable to really tangibly talk about her as a candidate. And I'm wondering, David or Eugene, if you want to chime in, it's not that she doesn't have experience. It's not that she doesn't have capability. Right. It's not that we wouldn't want to see a woman become president of the United States. All those things are in the plus.
Gene, why is she?
But her experience needs to add up to something.
Why is she so good in the abstract, but gets a little less agile, let's say, once it looks like she's moving towards a campaign?
Well, as Ben pointed out, she has a record. She has a very long record. And all the stuff can be picked apart. I watched her campaign in 2008, and she was really good on the stump. Barack Obama was a bit better, but she was good out there. People forget what a juggernaut and what an effective campaign that was, and had lightning not struck that year, and it did strike, we'd probably be talking about President Clinton right now.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, too, that it's moments in time, right? I mean, part of the magic of Barack Obama as a candidate in 2008 was his position on Iraq, was the fact that he seemed newer, fresher, more about the future, represented a historical change. She may catch that moment this time around, being potentially the first female president. And maybe her views about Iraq, while still difficult to have to reconcile, make her seem a little bit more hawkish at a time when that might be more helpful now, when Republicans are going to mount an attack on President Obama's foreign affairs and his national security policy.
All right, and David, as we're on this, President Bill Clinton is reprising his role as defender of President Obama in an exclusive interview with you, David Gregory, airing this weekend on Meet the Press. The former president laid the current turmoil in Iraq at the feet of the previous administration.
The former Vice President Dick Cheney said of President Obama in an op-ed that claims that al-Qaeda is decimated is clearly not true, that in fact al-Qaeda is on the march. The argument that America is less safe under President Obama. Do you believe Dick Cheney is a credible critic on these matters?
Well, I believe, if they hadn't gone to war in Iraq, none of this would be happening. So I think
it wouldn't be happening in Syria. There wouldn't be.
Well, it might in Syria, but what happened in Syria wouldn't have happened in Iraq. Iraq would not have been, in effect, drastically altered as it has been. But Mr. Cheney has been incredibly adroit for the last 6 years or so, attacking the administration for not doing an adequate job of cleaning up the mess that he made. And I think it's unseemly. And I give President Bush, by the way, a lot of credit for trying to stay out of this debate and letting other people work through it.
But David Gregory, some would say it's unseemly for the former president to criticize George W. Bush for starting an Iraq war that he supported himself.
Well, I mean, and his level of support at different times, certainly the 2004 quote that you're referencing, I don't know that I'm familiar with. Let me just say that.
Well,
but he certainly talked about the threat
David.
of his
No, it was obvious. He supported and said publicly he supported George W. Bush in the Iraq war.
Right, and he obviously agreed as well with the intelligence about Iraq and the nuclear threat, the potential that was believed at the time that Iraq posed. Look, he'll also be countered by others who say the idea that sectarian strife throughout the Middle East, in Syria or in Iraq, was somehow started by the Iraq War is also misguided, that there was a lot of that was happening and it took a brutal dictator to keep a lid on it.
Okay, we're going to cut the debate short. Is that okay?
This is a
you all are going to like
shift.
We're going to take a hard turn here.